Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is blackdoctor.org. And again, I am Ellis Dean, a senior project manager with blackdoctor.org. And we have a wonderful, wonderful show for you today. No, we're not talking about COVID. So if you're checking in, looking to talk about COVID, this is not the show for you. But we are going to be talking about how you can live your best life and how you can bankroll your own brilliance so you can develop multiple income streams for 2021 and beyond. So I know you want to stick around for that. We have a wonderful guest who is a masterful speaker, author, beautiful person inside and out that's going to really kind of give us some helpful tips on how we can live our best life by increasing our income streams and bankrolling our own personal brilliance. You know, it's funny, when we started setting up the show, I started thinking about my early days in building my own career. And I remember when I first started writing, and I was working at a job of customer service on the phone. If you've ever worked at a phone bank, you know what it is. And so one of the things was I would write between when times were low. I would sit there and write, different articles and blogs and things like that. And then my supervisor told me, he saw me doing it. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just writing some things that I'm trying to work on some things outside of the job." And he said, "Well, anything you write here is owned by us." And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me that says, "Oh wow, yes, I am using their equipment. So anything I do, they own." And I'm glad he told me that. So I stopped doing that, and I started writing on my own and getting my own information out. And so I'm going to shut up because you're not here to see me yap on about my career. You're here to talk to Nicole Roberts Jones. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. And I was enjoying you, talk on and on. It was getting good.
Well, look, in my former life, I've talked. I could do an hour-long radio show by myself if I need to. So, but we have you here, and we wanted to talk to you because you're much more interesting to talk to than I am. So we definitely will talk to you better. So let me jump right into this. Okay. How did you get started in this whole process? Because I know nobody jumps out and says, "I'm going to be a consultant and help people build better lives." So how did you get into this process?
So yeah, if you would have told me 27 years ago, and yes, I've been doing this for 27 years, even though I'm only 28, right? If you would have told me 27 years ago that I would be an entrepreneur, I would have told you, no, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. Right.
Right.
And so literally this happened to me in the midst of me having the career I always dreamed of, the career I dreamed of ever since I was a little girl. So I worked in the entertainment industry back in the 90s. And at the time
Mhm.
I worked for Viacom's largest cable network. We had an outreach to over 89 million homes on a weekly basis. And don't worry, I'm gonna answer your question, but I want you guys to get this because many of you guys need to understand this because it's time for your pivot.
Mhm.
So from there, I worked for the number one TV show on Fox and casting. And then from
Mm.
there, I worked with the entertainment group, and what we produced generated over $12.6 billion a year. See, I was doing all of that. Plus, I was going to all the hot Hollywood parties. I'm sure you know me well
Right.
enough to know that, at least that was right. Bumping elbows with all the stars. And so I want you guys to get, I was living the dream.
Right.
But somewhere along the way, something felt like it was missing. And I couldn't
Mm.
understand, how could I feel like this when this is the thing I've been dreaming of doing ever since I was a little girl? And every time I talked to one of my friends about it, they kept saying, "Girl, are you crazy? Didn't we go to this party? And didn't we go to this red carpet event?" And so I felt dazed and confused. But there was something inside my soul that was saying something different. And so
Mm.
really that began my quest to figure out this disconnect that I was having. And here's what I know, since we on Black doctors, let me say this, now that
Right.
I've been in this for 27 years, what I know is that when you are either not happy or you feel like something is off, research shows that that causes stress, that you don't sleep,
Mm.
that you gain weight or lose weight, depending on what you do when you're stressed, right? I eat,
Right.
so I
Right.
would gain weight, right? And so what I know is in that moment for me, I wasn't sleeping. And
Mm.
again, every person I talked to kept telling me I was crazy. And guess what? I felt crazy. So, in the middle of me feeling dazed and confused, one of my girlfriends invited me to volunteer at a program at our church one Friday night. And as I started working with young women that night, and again, this
Mhm.
was in 1993. Now, what I know I was doing now was coaching, but back then I didn't know what to call this thing. But
Right.
something in me was alive, and so I had a decision to make. And so it was in that moment, Alice. I still wouldn't say I was an entrepreneur back then, but I didn't even quit my job. I started doing it alongside my 9 to 5. And really, what I realize now is it was my gift and talents inside me
Mhm.
really calling to expand. It was really God just stirring up my gift to
Right.
expand my territory. Hmm.
Boy, but that was a testimony right there.
Right.
I, I will say absolutely. I'm feeling you, and people are in the chat room starting to, they're feeling you on that whole situation because you're absolutely right. You get that calling. Mine was writing and getting into media in some way, and
Right.
so it was just I just started writing a blog, and so my family said, "Ellis, you write so well, just put it out there on your own. You don't need somebody to validate that you write well. You don't need a company or somebody to say, "Oh, you're a great writer." Just put it out there. And I was getting the feedback, and that kind of led to other avenues. Started doing our own little talk show, radio show online,
Right.
and it kind of went from there. And then, yeah, eventually it got on air, but it was definitely you do have to scratch that itch, if so to speak,
I
and
like that.
trust
Right.
and trust yourself. So, what made you ultimately just say, you know what, I'm going to trust myself and step out here and do it?
Well, you know what's interesting is back then I would have never said I was trusting myself. I was just trying
Okay.
to answer this thing inside of me. And I love
Mhm.
the example you just gave because here's what I found in my own self and in the journey of countless number of people I've been able to serve in the last 27 years is we discount our greatness. We
Mhm.
overlook it. We downplay it. Oh, doesn't everybody know how to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but nobody does it like you. And so for me, what I realized in that moment, standing in that church that night, helping women, now I could tell really what I was helping these young women do is define their purpose, get clear on what
Mhm.
they're good at, and start to really chart a course doing that for a living, right? And then I started
Right.
doing that with grown folk, and here I am, right? So what I realized is here is the interesting epiphany I had is there's a picture of me that sometimes I show. I'm 3 years old, pushing a baby carriage, and I'm talking in the
Oh,
picture. My husband did a roast for my 40th birthday. If y'all ain't figured out I'm older than 40, then y'all can't add. But anyway,
so that
my
was last
husband,
week, right? That was last week?
I'm 51, right? Since we're on Black Doctors, Black don't crack when you take care of it, right? So anyway, so so for my 40th birthday, my husband did a roast for me. And so he and my mom got together and he said that in just about every picture I was talking. Well, hello, what do I do for
Mm,
a living? I'm talking, right? So I've always been this girl. I talk, right? I got my name. I went to Catholic school, so my name was on the blackboard every day, with all the checks next to it for talking too much, right? So in
right.
addition to that, at 3 in that baby carriage, I have books and papers because I've always been a natural producer. What I
Mhm.
did was casting and talent management in entertainment. What do I do now as a coach? Casting and talent management. So I'm
Right.
sharing that because it took me a long time to get clear on what my brilliance is and how to begin to bankroll it. And
Right.
so the epiphany that I had, and it took me a while to get it, was that here's the thing to answer your question. I have come to the realization that we all are born with DNA, which I call distinct natural ability, that
I
God puts you
like
here
that.
on assignment. And when you're clear on your gift and you begin to stand in it unapologetically, it does two things. It helps you make a meaning in this thing called life, and it makes money for you while you do it.
Oh wow. Oh wow. So yeah, I like that. What's that DNA again? I'm gonna put that in the chat room.
Distinct natural ability because listen, I study everything. So since we're black doctors, let me act like I did some real research, right? DNA. Now, if somebody's on here and can correct me, please, I am coachable. So I did the study on what DNA is. So here's the thing I think is interesting. There are 2.4 billion cells that make up our molecular DNA, right?
Mhm.
And so the thing that I think is interesting is no two of us have the same molecular makeup.
Right.
But there's 2.4 billion cells in me. Just like there's 2.4 billion cells in you. That's why I said if I'm saying the wrong number, y'all correct me. But the thing that's interesting is despite the fact that we have so many cells in us, there's some way, something that you do that's distinct to you. And so
Yes.
that's what I began to realize in my own journey as people start going, "Oh, Nicole, can you help me with this?" And I was like, "Sure." And at first I was doing it for free, like many of you,
Mhm.
like you were too, Ellis, right?
I
Because we
was.
overlook it. And when you get clear and uncompromising about it, that is a game changer. And that's really what happened for me is I started in my church for free and started
Mhm.
realizing the value that it began to give to people's lives and the value began to give to my life. And the rest is history.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak for all the people that have that in their DNA. The naysayers that listen to the naysayers, that listen to the people that say, "Oh yeah, you was good at the church, but nobody's going to pay you to do that, right?
Yep.
Or you were good at this, this, and that, but who's going to pay you to do that? And why are you charging so much? And all of these things, the negativity that comes out that block people sometimes before they even get started, because they can
Yeah.
hear the negative thoughts in their head already. They can hear the responses in their head already, and they don't have a ready-made answer for it. And so therefore they turn around and they go, oh, well, and they don't even get started in really igniting that DNA that's in them, that distinct natural ability that's in them. So how do you overcome those naysayers? How do you overcome that internal negativity and that external negativity that's going to block you from, bankrolling your brilliance?
So what I had to realize is that this purpose in me is nobody else's baby to birth than mine. And yes, man, you got a baby to birth inside you too. So don't discount that, right? So because of that, think about when you're in your first trimester.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can see it. So when you're first starting to do it, you don't even look like you're pregnant, right? And so mind you, I've not had any babies either. So I'm with you, Ellis. So mind you, okay. So keep in mind when you have this rumble inside you, if it's something different or it's an expansion of what you're already doing, and people haven't seen you do that before, they're gonna hold you at who they already know you to be. When
Right.
God is holding you at who he already knows you to be, which is usually
Mm-hmm.
on another level. So if I use an example in Michelle Obama's book Becoming, around chapter 10, and those of you that haven't read it, first of all, where you been the last few years? And if you haven't read it, spoiler alert. Anyway, in about chapter 10, she talks about the fact that she matriculated in her law career and she was doing great, but she realized she hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, she was frustrated because she hadn't done anything else. And so it's like, what do you do? Right. So I'm sure a lot of her friends probably were saying, girl, you need to stay in law. You see how high you are. But inside of her, she knew it was time to go. So you've got to listen to the inside. And I believe that's God. One of my clients calls your gut God uttering time out. And
Okay.
literally, for me, I had to stop listening to what everybody else kept saying, like, Nicole, you crazy? And I felt crazy, but I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't deny what I was feeling. And so I had to go investigate that. The blessing for many of you is that now you don't have to investigate it. I'm here. God figured it out. So I got to hold the space for you. But for me back then in the 90s, there was no such thing as a coach. I spent hour upon hour upon hour in the library, a whole lot of prayer. And so it was a really tough, but you have to stop listening. Here's the thing. Many people are looking for an outside answer to an inside yearning.
Uh-oh.
If you
Say it
stop looking
again. Run
outside,
that back. Hold up. Run that back. Run that
many people
back.
are looking for an outside answer to an inside yearning. That inside
Mm-hmm.
yearning is God saying, yo, hello, I got something else for you to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so for Michelle Obama, in that at that same time, she could have stayed a lawyer, but she didn't. She shifted. And here's the thing that I think is interesting. I use this story a lot. I was speaking at an event. A woman raised her hand. I don't think rose is a word. Raised her hand and
It
said,
is. I think it's a flower.
she said, "Do you think Michelle Obama going to law school was a waste?" And here's my answer to her. The Bible verse says all things work together, not some, not a few. Oh, if y'all
Mm-hmm.
can't tell, I'm a God's girl, I am. And
Yeah.
so, literally, think about who Michelle became as our first lady. You think she didn't use that law degree? But
Yeah, I
she
know.
didn't know then that that was in her future. But that worked together for our good as a country. So, it's really being clear on when it's time to make a shift, when it's time to, here's what another thing I've learned is God calls you, like, I'm clear. I was meant to be in entertainment. I use a lot of those skills now, and I might have a full circle moment at some point. Who knows what God is up to, right? But
Right.
those same skills I use there are here. If I didn't learn them, it's so funny. My team sometimes I call it production meetings. Sometimes they're like, really? But there are things I learned there that I use in my business that makes me different.
Yeah.
And so everything gets used. And what I've learned is that God starts you just like when you started kindergarten. You couldn't stay in kindergarten and then start your career. You had to go to elementary school and then junior high and then high school. So what God does is he continues to grow your gift. And so you're matriculating through that same system. You just don't know that you're moving into another level of it until you're in the face of it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you're saying all that, and I was like, wow, you're a translator. And what I mean by that is that for those of you that Malcolm Gladwell's book, I think it was The Tipping Point, and he talked about the roles that people have that in developing products. He was really talking about marketing products. But what you are is you're a translator. So people have that internal voice that they don't know how to answer it. They come to you and you help them translate that voice.
Yes.
Be able to say, this is what has been speaking to me. I couldn't figure it out what it was, that God uttering time out moment. You're able to help translate that so they can move forward in, being their full self and
Mhm.
doing that path to bankrolling their brilliance. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I
And
love
here's the other thing that's interesting is when you figure that out, it ain't about you. There are a group of people that need that gift in you. So you're the answer to somebody's problem. So when you
Yep.
figure it out, it's being the answer, really is what it is. And so for me, when I figured that out and realized that, oh my goodness, so if I get out of my way and stop trying to, say, well, nobody's gonna pay for this and get all that negative chatter out, which to
Right.
me is the enemy trying to keep you who you used to be instead of who God is trying to move you into, right?
Okay.
And start to really stand in it. It's not, it's a game changer for everybody, for you, for your clients, for your family, for everybody.
Well, it has been, and it's funny. I'm sitting here. You got me thinking about my own journey, how I ended up here with my doctor, because I worked in marketing on the business side, and I worked in healthcare as a counselor, and both were great, but both were unfulfilling because there
Yeah.
was some part of me that wasn't being fulfilled, wasn't being nurtured, wasn't being expressed in both of those, points of my career. I
Uh-huh.
come here, I do everything. Um, Doing interviews, I'm writing for the site, I'm
Hmm.
marketing and all these things, and everything that I've done led me to this point to be with Black Doctor. And my wife,
Hmm.
she's like, I've always been praying for you to find the right position for you. And she said,
Hmm.
this is it. And she said, this has everything that you've done in your life has gotten you to this point. And I said,
Yeah.
absolutely. I do
Yeah.
everything right here. So it's amazing when you find that space. And I didn't even look for this job. That was that was the funny thing. It found me when I was ready, and so I think
Yeah.
that's.
Exactly. That's because what happens is preparation always meets opportunity. So if
Hmm.
you don't take the time to, here's the thing, and I said this on a podcast, and I think I'm gonna get a lot of like, ooh, but comfort zones are
Hmm.
where dreams go to die. I'm gonna say
Oh,
that one more time. Comfort
yeah.
zone. You staying comfortable is where your dream goes to die. So every time you had an idea to do something different, now what you were already doing was comfortable. But you had to
Hmm.
do this whole different thing that was like, if it doesn't work, what if I fail? We all feel
Right,
like that, right?
right.
But you stepped out in uncomfort, right? Your
Mhm.
comfort and your conviction can never coexist. So
Yeah,
when you're growing, you've got to risk it all to gain it all. And so for
yeah,
you, the reason why you're here is because, okay, yeah, I did this, but there's something else inside me. Let me try this. Oh, but
yep,
there's so many people that never do that. They stay in comfort. And so for me, when I left entertainment, that's all I knew. My undergraduate degree, all my internships, all the jobs I had. And then I'm stepping out to do this thing that I don't even know what it's called.
right,
Right. And
right.
then to be honest with you, I thought I was a counselor. So I went back to school and got my master's degree in social work.
Oh wow.
Now I realize what's so interesting is now I'm part social worker and I'm not the social worker that takes people's kids, y'all. There's more social workers than that out there. Okay. My expertise is program development and
Right,
producing and casting. Those two things together make me unique.
right,
Right.
right.
And so at first I thought going to get my MSW was a waste after I spent all that money that I'm still paying on, by the way, right? But it's not. It's what differentiates me from other people that do what I do. And it helps me look at things from a different lens. But I can
Right.
see that now. I couldn't see that in the middle of it.
No, you can't. You can't. Sometimes you got to step
Mhm.
out by faith, right? And you
Yep.
just got to say, I know this is my path. I got to be on it. And just because it hasn't been laid out for me perfectly, I know
Right.
this is the path I need to be on. And you'll know that. You'll know it in your spirit. You'll know it, because I always felt restless. I always felt, and one of my friends told me the other day, she said, I always admire the fact that you can reinvent yourself. And at one point, I thought it was a bad thing, and I was like, but I was like, no, you do have to say, if this is not right, I'm okay with saying it's not right, and I need to move on. It's time for
Mhm.
me to move on,
Right.
versus sitting and being in comfort. Now, some of that is uncomfortable because you got to start back over. You got to get on that path again. But definitely, if it's the right path for you, you'll be there. You'll get there. You got to be able to.
To shift. What's interesting is so many people rely on their bio and their resume. When that's done, my bio, what you said in the beginning is done. I've already
Yeah.
done that, right? So I'm
Yep.
not here for who you already are. I'm here for who you have not yet become. I'm focused on the 2030 version of me because 2021 is done already. She done. I already know.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
what is next for me? So if Oprah kept her show after 25 years, when everybody was like, why is she leaving her show? It's doing so well and started her network. You think she wasn't scared? And then her network bombed. Y'all
And
remember
then,
that? It was worse
yes,
than the
yes,
worst TV network. It was
yes.
horrible that first year. I'm sure people were saying, "Girl, go back to your show, comfort zone, go back to the Oprah show." But she
And
didn't.
they
She
would
got
have taken her
help.
back. You know, they would have taken her back.
Oh, we would all taken her back because I still miss the Oprah show. But now the OWN network is one of my favorite networks. My husband calls it the new BET because it's so much,
Yeah.
so much good program on it. But again, if she would have quit when it got hard, if she would
Hmm.
have stayed in what was comfortable, which was her TV show, which she had on lock, right?
Yeah.
As the kids will say, I might be aging myself now because they might not say that anymore. But she had it all down to a science. And
Right.
yet there was something more rumbling in her too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's a perfect example because I've seen it, and I think sometimes I think perseverance is a big key in that, right?
Yeah.
Through that pain, through the initial, troubles, because I'm friends with the producer that we're all familiar with now, Will Packer,
Mhm.
and um, I was there since we were friends from college. I
Mhm.
was there in the beginning, and
Right.
it could have been really really easy.
To
He was a
quit.
brilliant engineering. He
Mhm.
had gone and got a
Mhm.
job somewhere and made a lot of money.
Right.
This wasn't what his calling was. And
Right.
so he was making those first few movies and everybody was like, "Oh, you still doing the movie thing?"
Right.
And
You
they
still struggling doing them movies, right?
kind of
Right.
treat him like they treated Noah when he was building the ark. So we talk about the Bible. So they kind of treat him like, why are you doing that? And he was like,
Right.
okay, it'll come. It'll
Mhm.
come. And it did. And then now he's super producer and he's on all
Right.
these lists. And you go,
Yes.
maybe that's why he was doing it. Like, no, that's what he wasn't
And
doing
people
it.
forget
He was
people
doing
forget
what he was called to do.
right, right. And then people also forget is seed, time, and harvest. So when you
Yeah.
have a seed in you, it doesn't just grow overnight, right? You're not
Mm,
gonna have an idea. It's like poof. There's no such thing as overnight success. I see
right.
some of my clients say,
No.
"So and so did it." You don't know what so and so did for the last 5 to 10 years, right? So
Mhm.
and seed time is not one word. It's seed, time, and then harvest. So you got
Right.
to plant the seed, or the seed is already in you. Time means watering it, perseverance, like you said, not giving up, staying in it when it's like looking like it's not gonna happen, and then the harvest comes. Anybody you greatly admire, Oprah, you could talk about J.K. Rowling's and the
Yeah.
Harry Potter books. I
Yes.
mean, she got turned down by like 9 publishers, right? For
Mm,
years. I can go on, and Tyler Perry lived in his car. I mean, you go
yeah.
on and on about examples, seed, time, and harvest. And I'm not saying everybody has to live in their car. I
Right.
am not calling that out in my life, Lord.
That's
But
perseverance, though. That was perseverance.
right, right, right.
But yeah, the thing is, you're absolutely right in terms of just being able to recognize that there's a time for everything. And so,
Mhm,
one of my favorite examples when people would say, "Oh, he's an overnight success," I said, "There's no such thing. There is no such thing." Because one of my favorite examples is an artist, Esperanza Spalding. She's like a jazz
love her. Mhm,
artist. She won the Grammy a few years ago for Best New Artist,
mhm.
but it was her fourth album.
Hello. She's been
So
around for a long time because I follow her too. I love her. I live in Boston, so she's at Berkeley, so I know who she is. Right, right.
because one of
Mhm,
my cousin was a jazz musician in Philadelphia at the time, so he kind of knew of her when she
mhm.
was around. And he's like, "Yeah, I've known her for a long time."
Yeah.
And then she won the Grammy, and everybody's like, "Oh, this great new artist." And he was like, "No, she's 4 albums in. She's been on this. She's been in the game for a minute. She's been on a grind for a minute. She's now getting recognized for her brilliance and her work, but
Yes.
she's not a new artist, and it's not this overnight success. She has been." Putting in the work and stayed true to her craft and what she was doing and got recognition for it.
Right.
Um, so that brings me to the next point. Um, what about those people that need that recognition to keep
Mm.
going? Need that external motivation to keep going? How do we switch that from external motivation to keep going when you get on that path and you start having some obstacles get in your way? How do you
Mhm,
get the strength to
mhm.
climb that mountain that gets put in your way to stop you from reaching your true destiny?
Well, there's two things that I have found are a must. One, you need to get with a coach, right? A
Mhm.
coach is different than a mentor. So many people say, I need a mentor. A mentor is going to fit you in where they can. You know, you might get a coffee once every 6 months, and a coffee is 15, 20 minutes, and they're in the middle doing 20 things. So you're not going to get their
Right.
full undivided attention. Not all the time, but most times. A coach is a contractual relationship saying we're going to meet, this determined number of times, and we're going to work on this predictable results. Okay.
Right.
So I know for me, now, mind you, I had a master's degree and I was teaching at a university level, and my business was failing. Okay.
Mm,
So yes, I had gotten clear on what my brilliance is. Well, I thought I was clear, but I wasn't. Let me be
right.
honest. Right. And so I really still was playing safe. It took me hiring a coach to show me what I didn't know. And I'm saying that at a master's degree, and I was teaching at a university level, because I don't care if you have a PhD, I don't care if you sit in a corner office. When you're being called to expand your territory, you've got to get new tools because you're doing it in a different way. And so,
Yep.
one, you got to have a coach. The second is you've got to find an accountability partner. So for
Okay.
me, when I hired my coach, I also joined a mastermind. And so it was in that mastermind that I met what I call my business bestie, because she
Mhm.
is also an entrepreneur. And so she understands my journey. So when I'm frustrated, because I don't care who you are, including Miss Oprah herself, she's got to get frustrated sometimes, right? When you need to be talked off the ledge, like, oh, I want to quit today because somebody has done something and got on your nerves or something, because we're humans. As long as we're in this skin, we're going to have moments where everything's not, you know, flowers and rainbows,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so you got to have that person to call that understands the journey and can help you create strategy to move it forward. So those are the two things I think, now at this point, after 27 years, I have girlfriends now that are entrepreneurs. A lot of my girlfriends back then that weren't now either have watched my journey or have become entrepreneurs. So now it's different.
Right.
But back then they just didn't understand it because they had never seen it, and neither had I. So I think when you're doing something different, you've got to find somebody that can be the light of your path, that can help you get to where you know you're meant to go.
I think that accountability partner is key. Having a coach also will help you put your ideas, crystallize your ideas, help you develop that plan. So having a good coach,
Right.
but having an accountability partner, having somebody that you can vent to, that can tell you to get up, stop crying, and get your stuff together.
Right, right. And I love that Starlene says small steps help us to get to right. I call that the 10% more rule, right? So
Yes.
if I want to get to 100%, like if I were to jump from here, you can't see my driveway, to the end of my driveway where I am, I couldn't make it. But if I took
Right.
a small step and another small step, I'll get to the end of the driveway. And I think a lot of times, so thank you for saying that, Starlene. I think a lot of times people get frustrated because they're not getting there fast enough. It's like, girl, you can't get from here to all the way over there overnight. So if you just keep moving a little bit, that's that seed time and harvest. You just keep
Yeah.
even if you're doing it alongside your business, you just keep moving forward. At some point, you'll get there.
You
Mhm.
know, I'm a sports guy, so I always use a sports analogy when I talk to my kids and I tell people, I say, single score runs two in terms of
Mm,
baseball. Everybody
mm,
wants to hit a home run, right? Everybody wants to hit
mhm.
it out the park and run
Right.
around the bases and everybody cheer. But you know what? You put enough singles together, you're going to score a run. So
Yes.
you don't have to hit a home run every time, but if you hit enough singles, you're going to score some points. And so
I know that's
be
right.
diligent about that.
That's good.
Don't just swing for the fences every single time. If you miss, then I didn't hit a home run. Okay, but did you hit a single?
Right.
Did
Did you at least make it on the base? Hello. Right.
did you on base? You on base, and let's
Look,
get to the
that's
next
my
base.
basic baseball knowledge. Did you make it on base?
How about that? It's like so yeah, and I would say that when I was coaching the kids, I'm like single score runs too, because those kids that get up there to that plate and they're just swinging away, and it's an analogy for life because sometimes we get there and we take this big swing, and if we miss, we go back and sit down. And we
Right.
don't work anymore. I'm like, no,
Right.
you got to make connections. You got to make contact. Get out there and make contact. If it's not a home run, did you get on base? Right? Did
Right.
you get on base? No. What's the next step? Try to get to second base. You got the first. Let's get to second. Get
Right.
third. Get home. Now you scored that run, and then you can start hitting more and more and take bigger swings. But right now, take it one step at a time. So I think that's great advice, Darlene. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for
Mhm.
commenting there. So again, I just want to remind everybody who we are talking to Nicole Roberts Jones, who was giving us a sermon today about how we can build, bankroll our brilliance and be our best self here. Not only because you're right, we're working on the 2025 version of ourselves. We're not working on 2021. When 2020 is over, what you have done to this point has already been established. But right now,
Right.
we're working on the better you, and so you can walk into your purpose. So again, thank you. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat room so we can make sure that we ask her, and because she's watching it too, so she can get your questions as what we got going on. So the question I wrote down, and why, and I think we may have touched on this, but I'm going to be real specific. Why can't some people bankroll their brilliance?
Mm. So I'm going to answer that and give you the steps to bankroll your brilliance, because I know somebody out there. Tell me if you don't. And look, I'm looking at the chat. Tell me if that's not what y'all want to know. Okay. So one, we did talk about this. So many of us overlook. There's two things we do. We either give it away for free, right?
Yes.
I call it giving away your cookie for free. Some of y'all know what I mean when I'm talking about that, right? If you date somebody who ain't giving your cookie away for free, why are you giving away your intellectual
That's a
property
nice
for
way to put it.
free? And the second thing is we overlook it. We discount it. We don't see the value in it, right? And so really what I have learned is that your gift, of course, is not valuable to you because it comes easy. It's second nature for you, right? I
Mhm.
call this living in your fierce, right? So fellas, hang
Okay.
with me because I try to ask my husband, could he be fierce? And he told me no. So listen, he's like, I could be a whole lot of things, baby, for you, but I will not be fierce. So let's say ferocious, but I still don't want you to miss this. So listen, I was watching Beyonce maybe about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And as I was watching her, hating on her, I would say a little bit, but I was hating on her a lot. Okay. I was having a full-on jealous moment.
Right.
And what dropped in my spirit is you have fears too. And I was like, I know this ain't God talking to me while I'm watching Beyonce. I know this is not,
Mhm.
right? So once I got over that, here's what began to flood in my mind in that moment is think about why Beyonce created Sasha Fierce. Because
Mm.
for the first time in her career, she had all the times before that she had been on stage with other women, with other young women, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
here she is being called out to her solo career. Hello, outside of her what comfort zone? We've been talking about this, right? And so
Right.
in order for her to do this new thing that she knew it was time for her to expand her territory in her career, right? She
Right.
had to conjure up this alter ego so she could still stand the full power of her gift. So
Mm.
what I realized is this. Number one, you got to get clear on the power of the one thing God has called you to do and do it unapologetically. So think about what that looks like when you stand in your own fears. Being all of you, not 5%, not 20%. I'm talking about 120%. So much so that you are so bright. There's a Bible verse that says, let your light so shine among men, I always say, and women, that they may
Mhm.
see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So you need to be
Amen.
so bright that somebody needs to put on a pair of shades to see you, right? Because you shine it so bright. And that's what Beyonce, to me, epitomizes a woman that is always trying to outdo her own self. She's in competition, but no one but her. So number one, you got to get really, really clear on the one thing and then stand in it unapologetically. The
Right.
second thing you got to do, because I said I was going to tell y'all what you need to do back where your brilliance, right?
Right.
Second thing you got to do is build a blueprint from it. Now, here's why I see so many entrepreneurs fail: is that you do whatever, whenever, however. You don't have strategy.
Right.
And so I just redid the house I grew up in in Inglewood, California. And I had to gut it out. I wanted all of these things. I wanted this floor I saw on one of those HGTV shows. I wanted all these things. And my contractor was like, hold on, wait a minute. We need to do a blueprint first. Why? I just want this floor and I want this wall. I want these walls, right? And he said,
Mhm.
they may not go together, but we won't know until we do a blueprint because an earthquake could come because the house is in California and the whole house will fall apart. And so many people are building their businesses without that same strategy and things are falling apart. It doesn't matter how hard you work if it's not based on the right strategy. So that's number
Mm.
two. And a
Right.
third thing, which is a COVID answer too, for those of you that are here in COVID, because listen, when you do this, this is a one surefire way that your brains will never be canceled. I don't care what happens around you, is you've got to create multiple streams of revenue in your business. So this is what I mean by bankroll your brilliance. So here's an example. I'm going to use Dr. Deborah Tillman. I love Deborah Tillman. She's been a client. She is America's super nanny. And I like to use her as an example because when she came to me, she was already doing great in her business.
Right.
And when I met her at a conference, and after this, I'll hush, Ellis, because I can talk for 3 hours. So I met her at a conference and she hired me because literally she has so many parents coming to her and either they couldn't afford her or she couldn't serve them because what people don't know is Deborah owns multiple childcare centers and she also
Mhm.
speaks all over the country, right? All over the world, actually. And
Right.
so what we did was we created a blueprint. Now, let me say this first. When she hired me, and I'll tell you what I mean by multiple streams of income. By the way, you can't have multiple streams of income without a blueprint. So I said we need to create a methodology. And here's where many entrepreneurs fail, dare I say, is that you don't realize you have a methodology in you because you are you on autopilot. So Ellis,
Right.
you don't wake up in the morning and say, I think I'm gonna be Ellis today. No, you're
Right.
automatically Ellis. And so because of that, there are things you do that you don't realize you're doing. And so I gave her an assignment. I give to all my clients for her to see the things that are intrinsic to her. And she came to my second call in tears because
Mhm.
again, she didn't realize it. And many of us don't. It's like in our blind spots. And so from that, we created a blueprint. From her blueprint. Now, this is where multiple streams come in. Okay. She created what we call her GPS system, her greater parenting system. So now she has
Mm.
online programs and group programs in addition to one-on-one.
Mhm.
So when a family comes to her, it's not about her making more money, but she didn't want to leave any more transformation behind. So if they can't afford her, they can do an online program or group. Or if she can't take any more clients, they're online and group. But in addition to that, when you have an online program, I call that making money while you sleep because you're not present. Right. I have clients that have been in Singapore and Aruba that have gone through my online programs and I'm not there. So
Right.
that's the way that you really begin to generate more revenue is having multiple ways to serve all the people that need you.
Well, we're going to talk about those online programs because I know there are probably some people that are watching that would love to be able to get part of that because
Right.
and be able to access it so they can build a blueprint. And I see Joanne, we're going to help you build a blueprint. We're going to get you there and get you where you need to be. So again, we are talking to Nicole Roberts Jones, and she has been giving us the blueprint to how we can bankroll our own brilliance and be the best that we can be in 2021 and beyond. Because we're building the future self. The past is the past. We're building the future self. So I wanted to make one point that you've been talking about, and it popped into my head. So I got to get it out of my mouth. It's in my head. So there's an effect. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and you can look this up. You don't trust me on this, and it's a psychological effect that happens to people. And it's two effects that happen in the Dunning-Kruger effect. There's Kruger. I'll put it in the chat room as well.
Right.
But yeah, you can Wikipedia. The first group of people is people that do not have a skill set, but think that they do. And so they're the people that overestimate. So there's that person. We can take you all the way back to high school. There's that kid that walked in. Oh, I'm about to ace this test, and then they fail it. Oh, that's easy. I don't need to study. I got it, and then they fail it. Right?
Yeah,
because they're overestimating their own ability to do whatever task they have in front of them. The second group is a group that are probably the people that are watching this program. Are that the people that have the ability, but think that everybody else has that same ability, so therefore they don't feel special. So I'm gonna talk to y'all again. I'm gonna make it real plain. They're the people that has the ability, that are special, that can do anything they need to do, but think that everybody else is just like them. So they don't master it. They don't go out there and do it because they say, well, everybody can do this. I'm not that special. Yes. So you could be suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect. You could be on the other end where you ain't got it and you think you got it, which is mental. But I think more people in this group or they're watching this program right now are in that second group that says, I've got the ability, but they believe that everybody else has that same ability. What do you think about that?
What's interesting is think about it like this. How many dentists are there corner after corner after corner after corner, right? And yet we all go to different dentists. My dentist is a white Jewish woman. So funny, doctor. I'm not gonna say her name, but when I go, my husband and I both love her. Okay, so don't judge me what I'm going to tell you I watch on TV. Okay, so my husband, they talk about kind of just went out of my head. Game of Thrones. They talk about Game of Thrones. I like Game of Thrones too. My husband loved it. I talked to her about Love and Hip Hop. Now I don't know how she can understand. Now I stopped watching Love and Hip Hop because it started getting bad. But what I'm saying to you is I love Dr. Labarta because we kiki and laugh and have such a great time. That is who she is. In addition to her dental gift. Okay. So I want you to understand when you bring all of you, this is what that fierce effect I was talking about a few minutes ago. When you stop discounting it, downplaying it. So like some of y'all will think I'm too much. I am for you. Right. But some of you guys think, oh, she's funny and she's fun because I'm all of me. I stop limiting myself and downplaying myself because some people don't get it and everybody's not meant to get it because you're not a good fit for everybody. And so it's really, really being clear on who you are. Now, here's the other thing, Ellis, that I think happens to us is that, and I'm going to use myself for an example. So I'm from South Central LA. You guys can see I'm a yellow girl. Okay. So I grew up in my neighborhood and they would call me white girl. And so for a long time, I just, and let me tell you, I remember my earliest memory was when I was 5 years old and I came home. Now back in the 70s, there were no black dolls yet, early 70s. I'm aging myself, really. And so I remember coming home and going like I had an epiphany. And I said, oh my God, mommy, I'm white like my doll. Like I got it. And my mother, light skin, my father's light skin, my whole family, right? And so my mother jumped up and grabbed me up. And mind you, I'm 5. I'm thinking I'm getting in trouble. But I'm sharing that with you because what that planted in my mind is that I wasn't good enough. Even though my mom was trying to instill pride in me, I still felt like I was not good enough. So that transitioned into the men I dated. Ooh, we can have a whole show on the men I dated before I met my husband.
Part two.
Like the men I dated, the jobs I had, the things I did until that epiphany moment for me in 1993, when I realized this thing inside me is bigger then all these things, and it took me a while. It took me counseling, it took me doing the
Mhm.
work, but
Mhm.
it really was beginning to dig up the weeds that were choking out the seeds of my promise. So I'm
Yeah.
sharing this with you because many of you guys have those same weeds. Your weeds don't look like my weeds, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes, like I have a client who was abused. And she was apologizing to me. I said, don't apologize to me. You didn't make that choice. That person that abused you made that choice. Your choice now is if you're going to keep it or you're going to let it go.
Amen.
Right. And so literally you got to look at when you're discounting or downplaying yourself, what does that come from? What
Right.
happened, or what is making you have that lie that you're believing? So for me, the lie was that I wasn't good enough.
Right.
Now, baby, you can't tell me I ain't good enough. Right. You can't tell me that now. But I've done the work to really realize what is that about. And when I started doing that work is when I had that memory of my 5-year-old self.
Right. And you're right. Those things are imprints on our psyche, whether it's our conscious
Mhm.
mind or our unconscious mind, that narrative that we formulate very, very early in our life that plays out. And if you don't recognize it and overcome it, then it will continue to hamper and be obstacle, your own personal obstacle in
Yep.
getting to the greatness that you have. I mean, it's, one of the things I was talking to a friend of mine, we were talking about finances, and they said, I said, the thing is, because they were talking about we were talking about the COVID vaccine and how whether or not jobs were going to require people to take the vaccine, and why a lot of Black Americans are really silent on the job because they're dependent. They don't want to lose that job because what are they going to do? And we
Right.
understand all of the racism that comes into work. So when you got a good job, we tend to be more quiet. We tend to mute our Blackness because
Hmm.
we don't want to be a disruption and end up losing that job. And I said, the
Right.
thing about financial freedom is this, is that it allows you to be authentically you everywhere you go.
Yes.
So even on that job, if you have a multiple screen, if you've got financial independence where you don't need that job, this is a nice, and I enjoy this job, but if I don't need it, then I can be all of myself when I come into
Yep.
work. I can tell you
Yep.
all my ideas. I can tell you when I disagree. I can tell you when I agree. I can be who I am. And I said the irony of that whole situation is once I started doing that, my job situation got better
I was gonna
because I
say
was
you
taking
got
all of my
raised. Right.
input. Right? So it has the opposite effect. You think it's going to be a detriment to your career. It's actually going to be a boon to your career
Yeah.
because they're going to be all of you, and you're going to be able to be all of you and give them all of you, and not just that muted portion of who you are at your job. And so I think it's really, really important when we're talking about building multiple streams.
Hmm.
We have to, that multiple streams allows you to be authentically you in everywhere you go.
Right. And let me say this too, as we talk about multiple streams, people talk about side hustles. And let me say this to you, right?
Mhm.
First of all, you should never quit your job to start a business, in my humble opinion, because you
Right.
need to spend money to make money. So you've got to have an investor, which to me in this day and age, because it's harder to get a small business loan. Come on, Black folk, And so literally, instead of quitting and not having revenue, if you build your business, I call it alongside. And let me tell you
Mhm.
why I don't call it a side hustle. Because I looked up hustle in the dictionary, and in
Mhm.
the definition it had pimp and prostitute in it. And
Yes.
I'm not trying to have you pimp your gift. Okay. So
Right.
when you grow it alongside, this is why the making money while you sleep is so critical. This is for those of you that want to build a business around your brilliance. So if you want to have a product-based business, I can't help you, right? Because all you can do is sell your pens. No shade on that. I just am
Right.
not a product-based expert. But if your brilliance, your expertise, listen, the expert industry is on track to go to $1 billion per day. Forbes wrote that,
Mhm.
not $1 billion a day. So there's so much available to us. The question is, will you do what it takes to grow it alongside your 9 to 5? How do you find the right side stream income? So here's the thing. I don't call it a side stream, and it's not right. And the reason I don't call it a side hustle, let me tell you the other reason, is I'm not talking about get rich quick schemes,
Right.
because that's like you might make money today, but it'll be gone tomorrow. Or it takes too long, you make a little bit of money and then it's over. So when you get clear on your brilliance and you build a business that's based on that, based on one, the power of the one thing God created you to do, and then two, based on the result it creates for people, because there is a need present. People are coming to you because they need you, not because
Yeah.
it's a hustle. Hmm.
Right. I,
Hmm.
I, I agree totally. You got to be who you are.
Yep.
Be who you are and cultivate that, right? Because side hustles, yeah, I've had a number of side hustles.
Yeah.
They were
You
just
were
like,
worn out. Just think about hustle in general. You hustle and you're tired. Listen,
Yeah.
I love my job so much. So do I work hard? Yeah. Am I tired sometimes? Yes. But listen, I could be in here all night. I am married. I'm in my office, right? I can be in here
Mhm.
all night. Sometimes my husband has to say, are you coming out? Not because I have work, but because I love it. I never feel like
Yeah.
I'm working. And so I
Yeah.
want that for everybody. And so when it's a hustle, it's like not feeling like that, right? And again, I told you at the beginning that a lot of people have jobs they don't like, which leads to stress and not eating. I mean, well, overeating and not sleeping. And we
Yeah.
don't want that for you. And so that's why I also side hustle is exhausting. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we also understand the money drives a lot of things. We got it.
Yeah,
So we see it, but understanding that discipline, managing your money properly
right,
is going to help you get that financial freedom that you need. So it might not be a lot. You might be, and a lot of people chase a bigger check.
right.
If you budget properly and say, okay, I'm going to take 10% and put it towards me working on this alongside thing. 10% of
Mhm.
my check goes towards this, 10% goes towards saving, and really reduce how you're living. Because my wife and I did it. We had to finally do it. And that's what got us there. And I told that to my friend. I said, look, it took us about 7 years of getting out of them streets, trying to keep up with the Joneses, buying this, buying that. It took us about 7 years to really shake the shackles, pay things off, to get
Right.
to the point where we're now, okay, we got the freedom. We can, we
Right.
could do, and when we develop such good discipline and habits, then now that we got the income, we're like, nah, we don't really need to do all that stuff. And
Right.
it's fine. Take a vacation when you want to, and then, but still, have a nice life. And so I think that freedom allows us to be who we are authentically everywhere we go. So please
Right.
recognize that discipline is a part of this whole process. You got to be
Mhm.
disciplined about building your brilliance, understanding your brilliance, and you got to be disciplined about how you go and build your blueprint to go out there and act it every day.
Right. Look, I see a couple people asking questions. So can I
Yeah,
answer
go
two?
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, they're here to talk to you. I'm talking to you.
I
You just
put
got
you
to
the
pick a
whole
side.
thing
I'm
because my
shouting over here.
contacts, like my contacts are acting extra. So,
Okay.
so it says you have a massage therapy industry. So let me say this to you. There are things, CC, that people ask you, they want to pick your brain. So what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing when you do that is you're giving away your intellectual property for free.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that is around massage, that's something you can create another stream of income around. So if I use an example just to be concrete, and let me say this, there's a cookie cutter approach to it. And if anybody tries to give you a cookie cutter, you need to run because God didn't use a cookie cutter when he made you. So please don't ever give it a coach that's using a cookie cutter. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a client that has a lipstick applicator line. And when she came to me, she was like, oh, you can't help me. Now you need to know I love a challenge. Okay. So I said to her, what are people calling you, asking you to pick your brain? And she said, yes. And I said, what about? She said, manufacturing. Hello. That's your intellectual property. That's that brilliance in you. So, yes, we created an intellectual property base, well, multiple programs. And so, Cece, that is in essence how you begin to build another stream, especially because right now in COVID, I hate to say this COVID word, but so many of us that have, or so many of you, because I don't have a brick and mortar business, so many of you that have brick and mortar businesses, your business is shut down or you're not having as much traffic because of it. And so you've got to think outside of the box and look at how can you use your expertise, your brilliance to begin to help people move their life or their business forward, right? And so that would be
Mm-hmm.
the difference. Now, another question. Adna, girl, let me tell y'all, I talk during English class. So I'm gonna mess up your names, okay? So Adna asks, how do you realize where you were created to do and where do we start? So if okay with you, Ellis, can I give a free gift?
Yes, you can.
So I have a Brilliance Roadmap quiz that will number one, so it's brillianceroadmapquiz.com. It's free. Number one, take the quiz. It'll tell you where you are. If you don't know your purpose, it'll start with what I call finding your fears. And then it'll give you 5 days of extra work to do to help you get clear all for free. Okay. Again, it's
I put it in
brillianceroadmapquiz.com.
the chat room for you so they can see
And then
it
those of
right
you that
there.
have already started your business or you want to start, it'll tell you you're there. Or if you have started and you're not making at least 6 figures, you'll be there. Those are the 3 stages. So take the quiz, answer the questions honestly, and tell you what stage, and then it'll give you the next steps to move it forward.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Pam. Sorry.
Quiz.com. Yep, it's in there.
It's
Perfect.
brilliant for my quiz. Okay, see, Pam, you got to put the quiz on
Yeah, come on, Pam. You should know that.
it. It's brillianceroadmapquiz.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. One of those things that, from my training was in counseling. So I got a master's in counseling, and that's how I ended up working in healthcare. And so one of the things was when I was actually counseling people, we would talk about insight, right? So an insight is really getting to know who you are, what motivates you, what your likes, and being true to that. So if one of those things is to helping you find what you're brilliant at or what your destiny is, you've got to have some insight about who you are, what drives you every day. What are those things that you could get up and do any day, every day, all day, that gives you energy while you're doing it?
Yeah.
That you can sit there and do it, and you're like, I'm not getting tired. I'm getting energized because I'm living my best life. You've got to have some insight. If you can generate some insight on that, then that's going to help you on the second piece of the counseling tree, which is action. If you can turn insight into action, that's how we start living and bankrolling your brilliance. But you've got to have the insight first, and then you've got to put some plans together, so put some action steps together on how you're going to turn that into action. So
Right.
insight to action, and that's how you
Look,
work.
even the Bible says that faith without works is dead.
It's
So you
dead.
can pray and pray, but if you do nothing, God is not going to do nothing either. Look, you waiting on God, and God is waiting on you. So you've got to activate it, right? And so, yeah, it's the same concept. Is really action is really the antidote to everything. Is being in action,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And simple physics says a body in motion tends to stay in motion. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. That's simple physics. So if you're sitting, you're going to want to sit more. You're going to continue to sit more. But once you start moving, keep that momentum going in any direction. Hit them singles. Keep swinging.
Let me tell you something. If I could call my trainer right now and say, I want to look like J-Lo, and I'm going to sit right here, I'm going to let you go ahead and work out. Go on, girl. Go ahead and work out. I'm going to sit right here while you work out for me. Then trust me, I will do it. And if anything else in life was that easy, we all would have it. I'd have my 6-pack abs that I've been working 6 days a week for, and I probably don't even have a 1-pack yet. So nothing in life that's worth it will be easy.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be worth it if you stay in here and do the work, right? And that's real. Sometimes I'm like, I don't feel like working out today. My husband's my accountability partner for working out. And sometimes we both don't hold each other accountable. It's so bad. But there's some days where he's like, come on. I'm like, ugh. But you need that. You got to stay in action.
We bought the Peloton. We bought the Peloton, right? And I was like, and the one thing that we said to each other was like, we're not going to make this an expensive clothes horse.
Right. Hello.
And that's what happens. A lot of times people don't buy those exercise equipment and they just start dropping clothes on it, and it becomes a clothes horse, and it gets buried underneath that stuff. So we're not going to do that. And so, we've been diligent about it, but it's tough. And that's life though. That's work. Every day's not going to be sunshine and roses, and every day's you're not going to jump up out of the bed, but understanding is discipline that helps you get through those days. And those days will come few and farther between when you have the discipline to get up and fight through it.
Exactly. Yes. Love it all. Love it.
Thank you, Pam, for update the website in there for.
Right. And hey, look, Carrie Threet, that's here is a longtime friend from back in my back in the day on my street. So hey, Carrie, I see you.
So South Central, that is. Yep. I mean, we hear South Central. It brings up so many, Inglewood. That's our
Inglewood. There you go. But,
country. So, was it as bad, or are we, or did the movies make it seem worse than what it was?
To be honest with you, it didn't get bad until I was in college. So, and here's the funny part. So when I got older, I asked all the gang members on my street, because none of them bothered me. None of them were trying to date me, and they told me my father got to them when they were little. So I think a lot of that activity I didn't see because my father scared all of them when they were little. So it did get bad though. When I got home, I remember coming home from college once, and I was in the kitchen getting some water in the middle of the night, and a drive-by shooting happened. I'm like, oh my God, but I didn't grow up in that.
Right.
So, I grew up in the age of stabbing. They had knives, not guns. Not that that's better, but at least they had to duck from a stab, So it started getting gradually worse when I got home. I graduated from college in 91. So it got bad like toward the end of the 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's always a question I want to have. Because I have a few friends from California, and they were they all would say something very, very similar. It was like when you're growing up in it, you don't think it's that bad. You know it, and you've seen it, and they may have known somebody from their high school that left and went on the gang route, or somebody that got killed. But they were just like, but the irony is the people that I was talking to were in college with me, so they were on a different track and they were on a different path, and so therefore they knew how to avoid some of those pitfalls enough to where they were able to get out and talk about it. So yeah, absolutely. You were saying Inglewood, and I just keep hearing Snoop Dogg in my
But
head.
I have to tell you one funny story. So in my 20s, I was going to see my dad, who lived in the house I grew up in, and who's no longer with us. But anyway, one of my good girlfriends was in a car with me, and the gang members that lived on the next block would stop every car, right? Used to it. I didn't even think, it didn't even bother me. So when they stopped my car, I said, "Can you guys move?" And the guy said, "What?" I said, "Can you guys move?" And then he got in my car, and my friend was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna die." And then he goes, "Oh, hey, Nicole." She was like, "Really?" I was like, "Can you guys please move?" Right? But she
Right.
was getting ready to have a baby in my passenger seat. And I don't think anything about it. I was used to it. So, you know.
That is hilarious. So, Nicole, we're coming towards the end of our time. This time has flown by, and it has been filled with so many nuggets. We talked about gut, which is DNA.
Shout them out, right?
Y'all got to share this with your friends. You get that. I'm not even gonna say it anymore. You gotta watch it again, and just how can people get in contact with you? I want people to be able to follow you, even if they just want to follow you to get those nuggets. I know you're dropping on social media on a regular basis. So how can they follow you?
So my new favorite place is Instagram. So follow me on Instagram. I am N Roberts Jones because my name was too long. So N for my first initial, Roberts Jones. And then here in Facebook, I am NRJ Enterprises with Nicole Roberts Jones. And then there's always my website, NicoleRobertsJones.com.
Absolutely. So make sure y'all go follow her. 4 books. I mean, can they buy your books from your website?
Yep. So on my website, everything's on my website. Yep.
So go to NicoleRobertsJones.com and you can buy all of her books about finding your fears. Really just about, if you want to take what we're talking about today to the next level, you got to go out there, you got to put in the work, you got to invest in yourself. And so part of that investment in you is buying some of those books and getting all of these nuggets, because these are just snapshots of the nuggets. The book is a full thing. And so it gives you, go to the site, the brillianceroadmapquiz.com, get the first understanding. That's free.
The second one's free too.
Buy the book and then go from there and just start living so you can bankroll your brilliance. That is wonderful, wonderful. So again, the chat room is your. Okay, do you coach men? Let me ask a quick question, Courtney.
So I'll tell you, my group coaching program, Courtney, is for women, but I do have one-on-one programs that I do coach men. I always say a few good men because it takes a good man to be able to be coached, right? So yes, I do coach men. So just go to NicoleRobertsJones.com. You see work with Nicole and just go to Elevation Coaching with Nicole and find whatever. Here's the thing. I don't sell you. We serve you. So we always want to have a phone call with you before we even enroll you in anything, because we want to make sure it's a good fit. So you'll see all the programs there. You click and you apply and then you have a call. So
that's the way it works. Okay, so I think that people could talk to you all day, and we'd love to have you back, Nicole. This has been fun. This was the best hour of my day. I look forward to it all day long as I've got to get through. So this has been.
I forget all about all the Christmas stuff I got to do. That now I got to get off, right?
Well, I tell you, Christmas. It's one of those childhood things that I don't want to get into. I'll start crying and all kind of stuff. We'll have a whole other show. But Christmas was never one of my big holidays, and so I don't do the whole hiding the present. So I've already bought my wife her gift, and I've been wanting to give it to her for like the past week. And she's like, "No, I'm waiting to Friday." I'm like, "Really? Just go ahead and take it, open it. It's not a big a deal. You'll love it." She goes, "I know I'll love it, but I want to wait till she wants to do whole Christmas experience." And I'm like, "I get it." But I try to accommodate what I can. But I literally was like, I don't.
Can I tell you why I love Christmas? So I'm an only child. My husband is a twin, and we go to his twin brother's house, and so it's family. And so I didn't grow up with that, and so I think I love it just because we have fun. We play games. I eat way too much. I always am mad at myself when I come back. So and we drive. So because of what's happening with us right now, we're driving. It's not far from us. So we still get to hang with them. So I enjoy the family time. It's not about the gifts. I think it's more about family and love and just all of that.
And see, for me, that was Thanksgiving. We'd always go to my grandmother and all my cousins and stuff. So I always love Thanksgiving more than Christmas. But okay, are you on Facebook? Martell wants to know, are you on Facebook? Yes, I think you said.
I'm NRJ Enterprises with Nicole Roberts Jones. That's my Facebook business page. Yes.
So if you try to send her a personal request, it's not anything personal. She's going to be like, "No, just follow the page."
I know you, right? Not to be mean. First of all, I barely post on my personal page, so you don't want to be on my personal page anyway. You want to be on my business pages because that's where I post. So,
Right. Right. So you want these nuggets, go to the business page. Don't try to be
Mhm.
a friend. Just get
I didn't say that. He said that. He
I said
said
it. I said it. I said it. You get mad at me, but I get it. Sometimes you're so personable and you're so fun, and and people probably would do want to be your friend, and I would get that from time to time when I was counseling, that they wanted to have a relationship outside of that space, and I was like, that's not this relationship, and they would be upset for a minute, and a lot of times they would miss their next appointment, then they would come back and they had to process it, and I was like, oh, I just like you. I was like, cool, I
right,
appreciate you. That's not what I'm here for, though. I'm not
right,
here for
right.
you. I'm here for you to understand what I'm trying to do is help you and make
Yeah,
you a better person. And so if we can understand that relationship, then that's the way this should go. So
yeah.
again, thank you so much for joining us, Nicole.
Thank you
This
for
has
having me. This
been
has been fun.
so much fun.
Yeah.
You all replay it, tag a friend, share amongst your networks. It's also going to be on our YouTube page, so on the blackdoctor.com YouTube page. You can get that link, and if that link is easier for you to share, do that as well. So again, this has
Thank you.
been a pleasure. So, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see y'all next time.